I had this mistaken belief that success was defined by your job title. Fast success builds ego. Slow success builds character. Environment always beats willpower. Solitude, stillness, and silence were absolute key.
What did you learn about yourself that surprised you the most?
I think a truth that many of us often forget or overlook.
So how can someone stuck in survival mode begin to reconnect with that power?
When you're in survival mode, the last thing you want to do is add more onto your plate. A lot of us, we know the answers. We know what we should do.
What message would you want to leave ringing in their hearts?
I think a thought.
Here, I'm your host for the Raygacy show.
What if burnout isn't the end, but the beginning of who you were always meant to be? Hi, my name is Rayson, and today's guest, Simon Alexander Ong, is living proof that hitting rock bottom can unlock a new chapter of purpose, power, and possibility. Once chasing society's definition of success, status, money, and a packed calendar, Simon found himself emotionally bankrupt and spiritually exhausted. That moment of emptiness became the spark for his transformation. He went inward, asked the hard questions, and redefined what it means to live a life that truly energizes. The result? A best-selling book with Penguin called Energize, a YouTube channel that grew to over 130,000 subscribers in a year, and a mission to help leaders and creatives around the world turn intention into action and energy into impact. So, if you've ever felt stuck, burnout, or disconnected from what really matters, this conversation will shift you. Get ready to rethink success, reignite your energy, and remember who you are. Now, let's welcome the incredible Simon Alexander Ong to the podcast.
Thank you so much for the very kind introduction there, Rayson.
Hey, you're most welcome, man. Really blessed and grateful for you and honored for you to be here on the podcast as well. So how have you been, man?
I've been doing good. You know, the last few weeks I've been catching up with family time, disconnecting, recharging the batteries, and excited for the next few months.
Yeah, I saw you went to Bali as well.
Yeah, Bali we've been for the last couple of years. There's something about going to an island and not having to be in front of screens all the time and just relaxing and just being instead of doing all the time.
Yeah, I saw you had a great time with your family, and I'm glad that you're here in Singapore with me on the podcast as well. And you're actually based in the UK, right? If I'm not wrong.
Based in London, which I think is great. It allows me to kind of travel to all the different cities around the world, and that's home. And it's great to widen my perspective, but also to show my daughter, my wife, the world, you know, as a way to kind of like broaden their horizons and to be inspired by new insights and ideas.
Yeah, totally. And just wondering, you have been in UK for how many years?
I was actually born in the UK. So my parents are Malaysian. So my mom was from Penang in Malaysia. My dad was from Cebu. They met in the UK and they decided to start a family there. And so I'm born and raised in the UK. And I guess, you know, got Chinese in my blood, but also have a dose of Western values as well. And it's kind of nice to kind of embrace both sides of my cultural heritage.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because I noticed you're not, Western in the sense. You're more Asian looking.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. And for those who do not know you, can you share with the audience a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So growing up, I had this mistaken belief that success was defined by your job title. Right. And so when I was a teenager, getting ready to go into college, in my mind, success was about being a banker, being a doctor, being a lawyer, being an accountant, a very traditional route to success. But unfortunately, I started in the financial services sector at the worst possible time. It was the middle of 2007, a year before the financial crisis.
Right.
And the company I started with was Lehman Brothers. which collapsed around 14 to 15 months after I
Yep.
started as a graduate. And so I was in the industry for nearly 10 years after that, in and out of jobs. I couldn't hold down a job for more than a few years. But the experience for me was a blessing in disguise because it kickstarted the journey to what I now get to do today, which is coaching executives, leaders, and celebrities, speaking on stages around the world, and writing books.
Mhm.
And the reason I say it was a catalyst is because it got me questioning what success meant for me.
Right.
For so long, I had followed the blueprint of what others told me was the right way to build a successful and meaningful life. But rarely did I question that until the financial crisis made me question it. It got me asking myself, is this what I actually want? Is this
Right.
what I really want? Is this what is going to fulfill me? And it taught me that success and fulfillment were two different concepts. You know, on paper, you could look successful, but deep inside, you could be unfulfilled. And what's the point of looking successful if you've lost who you are in the process? And so that really got me thinking about my future and laying the foundations and steps to make that change happen.
I understand. And usually I realize that there are a lot of times where people have to go through this kind of setback, this kind of journey in order to actually learn and even unlearn
Yeah.
what they realize about success and fulfillment.
It's so important. I mean, it kind of reminds me, just as we're speaking now, Rayson, that there's a saying that goes, fast success builds ego, slow success builds character. And I think that's so true about my journey. You know, if you achieve success very quickly and unexpectedly, I mean, you just have to look at Hollywood or sports where people get rapid success and then it corrupts them. You know, they then lose themselves to the trappings of success. But if you go through slow success, where you encounter failure, challenges, setback, and obstacles, what happens is it helps build your resilience. It helps build you into the person that can not only achieve, but can maintain that work ethic over the long term.
Yeah, totally. And you look at Justin Bieber, for example, right? I love his songs, but then again, because of how he rose so fast,
Yeah,
you look at him selling off his records to
absolutely.
his companies as well, and instead of building his success in a slower fashion, like what you mentioned, it kind of corrupted him in a sense. He was on the news for so many bad things as well, right?
Absolutely. And this is why it's so important to understand that when you get to a certain level in your journey, it's not about coasting. It's about firstly looking back and appreciating how far you've come. And second, understanding, how do I keep reinventing myself? How do I keep evolving? The worst thing you can do is get to a certain milestone and stop. And stop your growth, stop your learning. Because the world doesn't stop. The world keeps changing and adapting and moving forward. And for you to remain relevant, for you to continue to add value, you yourself, you have to learn how you can keep adapting and evolving and growing into the new person you need to become to get there. That's the process of reinvention. We're always reinventing ourselves.
Yep, totally. I agree with you. And, Simon, you mentioned that burnout, right, became your teacher and rock bottom became a new beginning.
Yeah.
So what did rock bottom look like for you, and what was the first step you took toward rising from it?
Well, it's funny because rock bottom for me, in the first chapter of my book, Energize, I speak to that a little bit in the sense that I was in my second job post Lehman Brothers. And a lot of my job involved client entertainment. It involved working hard during the day, very early in the morning till kind of mid-evening. And then from there, going out, partying, entertainment, drinking, and so on, all of what you would expect to see as part of a job in finance. And there was one evening where I remember texting my girlfriend at the time, she's now my wife, and I said to her, I'm going to catch the last train home. Don't wait up for me. I'll be back shortly after 1 a.m. But as I went downstairs to the nightclub, no reception on my phone. I checked in my bag. Drinks start flowing. Entertainment kicks off. And before I know it, it's mid-morning. And I've missed the train. And so I have to hail a taxi back home. I stumble in the door around 3:30 in the morning. And of course, she's still up. She's worried sick. Yeah. She's been texting me. She's been leaving me voice notes. Of course, I can't receive it because I just wasn't in the state of mind to check what was on my phone. And that was a very eye-opening experience of what I was about to lose. You know, if I didn't make a change to what was happening, I would not only lose myself, my health, my job, but also my relationship. And so when I sobered up the next day, I sat down and had a heart-to-heart with my girlfriend, and she said, "You're not who you were. You know, you've become someone different." And I knew that the job I was in wasn't making me happy. It was draining my energy. It was exhausting me spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And I knew something had to change. I was at that point where the pain of not changing was now worse than the pain of changing. And so that was me having to look at myself honestly and brutally and saying, if I don't take responsibility for where I am and where I want to be, I'm giving up on life. My dreams are dying. And so that was kind of the first real wake-up call, was realizing what I was about to lose if I didn't change. And then the first step for me to really make the change was my environment. Because I'd grown up in an environment where everybody got a job, everybody got good grades at university, everybody was chasing, career promotion. They wanted to move up the career ladder. But I didn't know anything beyond the world of finance. And so I knew the first step was to change my inputs, what I read, what I watched, what I listened to, the people I spent time with. And if I could change that, I could open my mind to a world beyond the one I was currently in.
Like you got to change your environment and the people around you before you can actually embrace that change. And
Absolutely.
really work on that.
And that's because environment always beats willpower. You can have the best intentions. You can go, yes, I want to quit my job. I want to start a business. I want to move into something that fulfills me. But if everybody around you questions that decision, if everybody says to you, why are you giving up a career that you've worked so hard for in order for something that you don't know is going to work out or not? If you have that energy around you, well, you're going to very quickly give up. And so your environment has to be optimized to support the new life you want to build. Otherwise, your willpower will just dissipate. It will melt away. And this is why we focus on the environment first and everything comes after that. As I often say, if you want to make meaningful progress in your life or any area of your business for that matter, you have to design an environment around you that makes it impossible not to succeed.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. And Simon, before redefining success, you chase what many view as the dream life.
Yeah.
Right? So what was the moment you realized it wasn't truly yours? Was it after the nightclub with your girlfriend, or is there some more incidences where
I think it was a culmination of things.
Right.
I mean, the nightclub incident I think was a big catalyst because it really brought home to me what was the impact of being in an unfulfilling job. Other instance was the fear of starting work on a Monday morning. I knew that I was living my life where I was hating what I was doing 5 days of the week, looking forward to 2 days every week, which was the weekend. My life revolved around looking forward to the weekends and the holidays and Christmas.
Right.
But I just wasn't gaining any joy from the day-to-day of being at work. That to me was another reason.
Understand.
And holidays. When I was away, I felt like me again. I felt like this is telling me that I'm not meant for what I'm currently doing at work. And all of these were signs, all of this thoughts and experiences for me were the universe trying to give me a signal to do something about this message.
Right.
And I think this is why awareness is the first step to change. Unless you're aware of the position you're in and the impact it is having on you, you're not going to change. You have to develop some sense of awareness. Once you've developed that awareness, of course, the next step is action. What are you going to do about it? How much longer are you going to avoid what you're capable of in order to continue with what you're comfortable doing?
Right.
It's really asking yourselves those deep questions and then taking ownership. Taking ownership that you are the only one that is going to save you. No one else is going to save you apart from you.
True. Yeah. you got to save yourself, or else no one can actually save you. Even your daddy, your mommy, anyone. No one can actually do that except for yourself. And I totally believe that you got to change the environment, like what you mentioned, and then from there you can actually change yourself.
Absolutely.
And Simon, I would like to ask you, what role did silence stillness, or solitude play in your personal transformation?
Solitude, stillness, and silence were absolute key because we are so caught up in the business of the everyday. From the moment we wake up, we go straight into our habitual patterns. Right. You wash up, you eat your breakfast, you chase down the bus or the train to get to work. Then you've got deadlines, everyone's demanding your attention. And so we don't really have time for us. In fact, we're very quick to accept the calendar invite for a business meeting. We're quick to say yes to the social gathering or the holiday in our diary. But how quick are we to say yes to me time? Time just for you, that you've blocked out, even if it's just an hour each day or a couple of hours on the weekend. How quickly are we saying yes to that time? And for me, that was important because I realized that if I'm constantly doing, if I'm constantly in action, if I'm constantly busy, I will burn out at some point. And the trick here is to find a rhythm between periods of deep work and periods of intentional rest. If you're always working without resting, you will burn out.
Agreed.
If you rest without taking any action, well, you make no progress.
Yeah.
So it's about finding that right balance. And if you look at how athletes train, they know this. They don't overtrain because they know if they overtrain, they risk injury.
Yeah.
And they're not in the optimal physical or mental condition come the big game. So they know there has to be a rhythm between work and rest. So they have periods where they push hard in training and periods where they just do nothing but completely rest the body. And they call this recovery. Now, how often do we give ourselves the benefit of recovery? And what I realized when I went inwards, when I embraced solitude, stillness, and silence, is that often the answers that we're seeking are within us. That's what we call innate wisdom. People call it innate wisdom, intuition, spirit, whatever we call it. That is our innate compass inside of us, guiding us, giving us clues, giving us nudges towards the decisions we should be taking. But we ignore, we suppress until we go inward and we listen to the wisdom we all have.
Right. Agree. And, just now you're talking about going inwards, right?
Yeah.
So when you went inwards to ask, what truly energizes me? So how did the answer surprise you and how did it disrupt your old identity?
Yeah, it certainly did disrupt my old identity because when I went into silence and I began to visualize what a successful career was for me, one of the first visuals I had in my mind was people. And what I mean by that, it was me engaging with people. It was me serving people. It was me helping to impact the lives of people. And there was a huge disconnect between that image and the image of going into an office and just staring at a screen of numbers. And so I knew that what I was meant to do was around people. But I didn't know what I was at that point. It was just me slowly going inward and seeing the clues that I was being given. And so as soon as I started receiving these clues, I would just take out a sheet of paper and brainstorm all the things that I would be glad I did in my life. If I was looking back, what would be all the things that I would want to do in my life with no overthinking about it, no filter, no judging about what I put down. And I simply said to myself, okay, what can I start exploring on this list? If it's around people, then maybe the first thing I can do is go to events. Start opening my mind to what I could do, meet people who do things different to me. And then I would just keep brainstorming things I could do that would at least feed my imagination of what that path was that I was meant for.
Agree. Yeah, if you are into, say, for example, looking for new people, then you go to networking events or seminars and get to know all these like-minded people, which you never know when you get to meet them, in a sense, right? If you always keep yourself at the same place, same environment, or at your home, right?
And this kind of speaks to this concept of luck surface area. A lot of people might look at somebody who is ahead of them and say, oh, they just got lucky. They had the right network, they had the right resources, they had the right support, they were in the right environment or the right place. And what I say in response to those sort of thoughts is you can actually increase your chance of being lucky. And the way you do it is to simply increase your luck surface area. If you just stay at home thinking about your dreams and your future, you're not going to be lucky. It'll be very hard for you to be lucky. But if you show up, and what I mean by this is if you sit at the front row of an event you're going to, if you introduce yourself to people every event you go to, every sort of experience where you get a chance to meet people, if you ask a question, if you send an email, if you send a direct message, if you send a voice note. Now, if you do all these things, what you're doing is you're increasing your luck surface area. You're increasing the chances that something will come back in your favor. You just don't know when that is or what that will be like. You're just planting seeds. You don't know which seed you plant will eventually blossom into an orchard. You're just planting seeds, keeping your fingers crossed and trusting in the universe. And that's kind of what I was doing. I was just planting lots and lots of seeds. I was increasing my luck surface area. And in time, things started to happen.
Well, that's interesting. Increasing luck surface area. I've never thought of that until you mentioned this.
Yeah, it's so true, because when I look at how things have happened to me, a lot of it has been because of that. Someone once said to me, Simon, how did you get Simon Sinek to endorse your book? And Simon Sinek is someone I've looked up to for many years. And that was simply by increasing my luck surface area. I went to an event in London. It was a private event where he was launching his second book. His second book was Leaders Eat Last. Yeah. And I remember going early to the event. And I went early to the event because I knew there would be less people there, and chances are Simon would be there early to prepare for his talk. And so I went to the receptionist and I said to her, can I have a quick look through the guest list just to see if any of my other friends are coming? So I had a quick look through the guest list, and I saw that Simon Sinek and myself were the only Simons at that event. And so I said to myself, that would be my icebreaker if I get a chance to connect with him. So I go to the bar, and I see him there having a quick drink before he gets ready to go on stage later on. And I just go up to him and I say, amazing to meet the only other Simon here tonight. And he said, no way, you're called Simon as well? Are we the only Simons here tonight? And suddenly we start a conversation. And at the end of the night, I get him to sign a copy of my book. And I say, one day we were share the stage together. And then fast forward a few years later, we're sharing the stage at the World Business and Executive Coach Summit. And it happened just by increasing my luck surface area, turning up early, being a bit bold in introducing myself, and just establishing a connection. These things are available to all of us if we're able to think different. Even when I was at an event where Richard Branson was launching his book at a place in London, there was someone near the front who had written their business pitch, their name and their contact details on a piece of paper. While Richard was talking, he folded that piece of paper up into a paper airplane and he threw it to Richard Branson while he was on stage. And he actually picked it up, he read it out and said his team would review the business pitch. That's how you have to stand out. Right. Think different, be bold, increase your luck surface area.
Okay, well, thanks for this. I'll take note of that, and I'll make sure I do that as well. And you actually mentioned that you believe that energy, not time, is the ultimate currency. So how can someone shift from managing their calendar to managing their energy?
Sure. Well, just to give a bit of context first. So the reason I think that energy, not time, is the real key to productivity is because you can be time rich and energy poor, and you will not get anything done. So you can have all the time in the world, but if you're low on energy, you will procrastinate and you will just waste that time. Most of us want more time, but we waste the time we already have. However, we flip it the other way. Let's say you are high on energy, but you may have less time. You will still get more done in the hours and days than most would in weeks and months. And a great example of this is if you have to wake up early to make a flight to somewhere exotic, a holiday with the family, business class flight. Even if you have to wake up at 4 a.m. to make that flight, you wake up. No problem, because you're energized. You've got the excitement and the energy of a holiday awaiting you. And so that time has no impact on you. You get up. But if you have to wake up for a job you hate, it's going to be pretty tough. Right? The energy again. It's a different impact of energy. And so the way we optimize our energy is to simply ask ourselves, number one, am I doing something that gives me energy? Am I around people that give me energy? Are the inputs into my brain giving me energy? Am I in an environment that gives me energy? Now, we want to assess those inputs because that's often the first place to address. And then it's to ask yourself, are the things you're doing giving you energy or taking energy away from you? Because what happens is that once you are doing something that gives you energy, you can sell anything. you can communicate better than ever before, because people don't buy your ideas, your services, or your product as much as they buy your energy.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Right. And, Simon, in the process of writing Energize, what do you learn about yourself that surprised you the most?
I think a truth that many of us often forget or overlook is that no matter what stage of the journey you're at, whether you are just starting out in a career, whether you are just launching a business, whether you are midway through the journey, or whether you've achieved a lot of success, we are winging it more than we think. And also people don't understand that or appreciate it as much. We often look at people ahead of us and mistakenly believe they've got it all together. Their life is perfect. They always seem to be winning and they're crushing it all the time. But in the process of writing the book, I really began to understand that we are all facing challenges, personal and professional. And at every level you move to doesn't mean they go away. They just change. They're different challenges. For example, the challenge when you first start a business is getting your first client. How do I make my first sale? How do I make sure I've got good cash flow? As you grow the business, the next challenge is, well, how do I make the right hire? How do I make sure I put a good team together? And as you grow the business again, how do we scale? How do we go international? And so each level presents itself with different challenges. And because we're human, to an extent, we're kind of going into it blind. Because a lot of this stuff, when you go through it the first time, you've got no reference point. You've got no experience in it. And so again, this is where environment comes in. But for me, it's understanding that at the end of the day, we're kind of all in the same boat. We're all figuring it out as we go along.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Well, this is interesting. This is interesting. And, Simon, in your book, Energize, you talk about unlocking your power by aligning with what fuels you, right? So how can someone stuck in survival mode begin to reconnect with that power?
And I'm going to reference sort of my journey here, is that when you're in survival mode, the last thing you want to do is add more onto your plate. Because when you're on survival mode, you are time poor. You just don't have the time to put more on your plate. And also, chances are you're energy poor. So you're not only time poor, but you're energy poor if you're in survival mode. So for me, the first step is to get some time back. And the way you do that is by looking at your calendar and really really drilling down and asking yourself, what can I start saying no to? How can I start getting some time back for me? And just focus on getting that energy back as well, because when you have some time back for you, you can start thinking again. You can start breathing again. You can start really planting seeds and the foundation for a better life. But you can't do that when you're in survival mode. You can't do that when you're just, trying to get to the next day, the next week, and the next month. So the first thing to do is to get a good foundation in place, get some time back, start creating some boundaries around you, saying no to things that aren't aligned to where you want to be, or that are kind of stopping you making the progress you want, and just giving yourself space.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that we have to give ourselves some space before we actually, go into adding more into our plate.
Yeah, it's sort of giving yourself space and then really prioritizing. When I look at my life before and after having kids, a question I often get asked a lot is, Simon, do you feel more or less productive now you've got a child? And I say, I actually feel more productive now I have a child, because before you have children, you've got the freedom to overthink and procrastinate. You're like, I'll do it tonight. And then tonight comes and something comes, I'll do it tomorrow. And so we can get into a habit of pushing things off. But when you have a child, you suddenly only have a small window of opportunity to get things done. Because when you pick them up from school, the rest of the evening is time with them. When the weekend comes, the weekend is with them. It's family time. And so suddenly you have less time to get things done. And that forces you to prioritize. I've only got 6 hours today to get work done before I have to go and pick up my child. Once I pick her up, can't do any work, because now I have to look after her. And so it forces you to really think, what's a yes and what's a no? If it's a maybe, it's a no. Because otherwise, you're not going to get time to do the things that are really going to move you forward.
True, agree. And you have actually mentioned this on your videos as well. And that is, you say that purpose isn't something we find. It's something we choose. So, what's your definition of purpose today, and how has it evolved since becoming a father?
When I first started, purpose for me was living each day with intention, as simple as that. Because I couldn't look too far ahead when I first made the transition from employee to entrepreneur. For me, it was one day at a time, one day at a time. If I can live each day with intention, I'll eventually get to a life that I enjoy. And so then that purpose evolved into service. You know, how can I add value into people's lives? That was through my coaching, my mentoring, my speaking. Now I've got a child, that purpose broadens even more. So it's not only impacting other people's lives, it's showing my child, showing my children if I have more, but showing my child at the moment that you can be whatever you want to be if you work hard at it. You know, when I grew up in a strict Asian household, the ethos was work hard, but work hard in these particular subjects. That was very much the ethos of the household. For me, combining Western values and sort of Asian values, it's work hard, which is from the Asian side, but on the Western side is in the thing that lights you up, the thing that brings you joy and makes you happy. You can do whatever you want as long as you work hard at it. And for me, it's showing my daughter that anything is possible when you put the effort in, and to be that example to her.
Right. Yeah. I mean, every daughter, every girl's hero is usually the father first, in a sense. So you got to be the role model for her, so she can learn and she can go with your footsteps, in a sense. And also at the same time, Simon, how do you personally distinguish between what stretches you towards growth and what silently depletes you?
Well, the way I say is, what stretches you? Something stretches you if you have a bit of nerves inside. You know, there's a bit of fear in there. Right. There's a little bit of, not sure if I should do it. That's something that stretches you. Something that depletes you is something that where you just have this anxiety about it. You're not sure. You're not sure if it's the right path. It doesn't kind of like pull you towards it. You need to push yourself towards it. Whereas something that stretches you, there's a bit of nerves and excitement at the same time. Yep. I'll give an example. One of my biggest talks I've done was in San Diego at a convention center. It was for a US event, and it was the biggest audience I've ever spoken to. And so that, in a way, was a bit of a stretch for me. The excitement was, okay, it's going to be a huge audience. They're going to be expecting some value and expecting great content for what they've paid money for. And the nervous part of me was, this is something I've never done before. You know, this is a completely new experience for me to go through. And so that for me was a stretch. There was the excitement piece, but the nervous piece, that was a stretch for me. Now, the one that drains you of energy is the one where it takes you longer to decide because you're just not sure you want to do it. There's a lot of questions in your head, and it's just a negative feeling you get from a proposal or from an offer someone's put out there. Right. And that for me, it comes with experience. You know, sometimes it's hard to tell because it's like you want to say yes to everything that potentially sounds good, but you know, you have to really think about what's going to give you the energy, what's really going to be a good stretch activity, and what's something where, you know, you can probably put it to one side and not have to say yes to it.
Right. And just like, you know, coming on the podcast, it's an immediate yes for you.
Especially if it's in person. I have a preference for in-person podcasts. And I think podcasts are very powerful today. You know, we're in a world now where you can build a personal brand just through the content you put out there. And podcasting is a powerful piece in that armor. Because from podcasting, you're able to share your message, share your insights, share your ideas. And that's content where people can consume and learn about how you live your life, what's helped you, and perhaps something they can take away to apply in their own.
Totally. Like what you're sharing right now, I can really resonate with it. And also at the same time, I believe my audience can also resonate and they can actually use it for their own livelihood as well. Definitely. Yeah. And Simon, many people know what they should do, but still feel stuck. So what's your advice for bridging the gap between intention and action?
Well, first of all, you're right. A lot of us, we know the answers. We know what we should do. You know, we know that if we did this particular action, if we took this particular step, then we would move to the next level. what stops many of us, from my experience, from people I've spoken to, from people I've coached, is the fear of judgment. That's what stops a lot of us. Because we might know that if I take this step, so that step could be if I pick up the phone and call this person, if I send this email, if I say yes to this opportunity, I would move to the next step in my journey, the next point in my journey. But what comes up in our head as soon as we think about that next step or taking the action is, well, what will my parents think? Well, what if it doesn't work out? I'll be seen as a failure. What will my friends think? What will my colleagues think? And so what's happening is the opinions of other people, the fear of being judged or the fear of what other people think stops you from actually taking the action. And so that mindset piece is key in taking action, because once you work out that mindset piece and you're at peace with the fact that it doesn't matter what they think, this is my journey and I'm going to go ahead with or without them. They can support me or they can ridicule me or they can talk me down from taking action, but it doesn't matter. I'm still going to do it. I believe in this process. Once you've mastered that part, you're then able, and this for me is the key piece in any journey, you're then able to collapse that gap between idea and execution. And the faster you can close that gap between idea and execution, the more progress you're going to make. And you'll end up living multiple lifetimes in your one life. Most people, that gap is so wide between idea and execution. But if you keep collapsing that gap, idea comes into your head, great, how am I going to apply it? You read a book, an idea comes up, how am I going to put it into action? You have a powerful conversation, an idea comes in your head, how am I going to put this into motion? And so if you keep focusing on taking the action, however small, you're going to make progress faster than you think.
Agree. Oh, nice. And Simon, how can leaders and creators today lead without burning out while still staying ambitious, relevant, and impactful?
So how can creators and leaders lead without burnout? The thing is, if I had to summarize in one sentence, is to understand that work and rest are partners of the same team. Too many of us view rest as a reward. So I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to get all of this stuff out. And then once I've achieved this, then I'm going to rest. Then I'm going to enjoy life. But we're not guaranteed tomorrow. You don't know if you're going to be around in the next year or the next 2 years. You can't predict all of that. All you can focus on is the now and the present. And so when you understand that work and rest are partners of the same team, you start integrating rest into your routine. You start thinking about, okay, I'm aware that maybe there's an event coming up or a launch coming up. I have to manage my energy around that. So maybe I'll clear up my diary a little bit just to manage the increased workload I know I'm going to get. So again, this is managing your calendar and your energy around that. And then when you do that, what happens is that when you go and do your work, you can come home and still have energy for your family. Otherwise, what most people are going through is they go to work, they burn out, they go back home, and they give their family and friends what's left of them. And that's where people over time think, well, what happened to him or her? Every time they come back, they just want to go to bed. They're so knackered. We never get to spend actual time with them. And if there's anything that children teach us, it's that people don't want our time. They want our energy. You could be with your child for a weekend, but if your mind is elsewhere, if you're on your phone the whole time, if you're always thinking about the next deal or work, were you actually with them? You're not present. And that's an energy. Children can sense it. Children will know when they're ignored. You might be with them in the same room, but you're not actually there. Whereas if you're present with them, if you're experiencing joyful moments with them, if you're physically, intimate with them, if you're reading stories to them, if you're trying out new experiences together, now that's how you give them your energy. That's how you avoid burning out, because it reminds you what actually matters. Work is only one piece of your life. There's so many other things that make a meaningful life. We should not and must not forget that.
Agree. Okay. Oh, nice. And, you've actually achieved tremendous impact with your book and YouTube channel. So what has the creative process taught you about flow, self-belief, and vulnerability?
Well, I'll reference the YouTube process in this because I've learned so much from the YouTube process. As you said, it's only been a year and a few months since we really started putting attention into the channel. But I think even through the YouTube journey, the creation process itself, it teaches us a lot about business skills and entrepreneurial skills as well. So I'll give an example. When I shoot a YouTube video, and then I think, okay, I've got this good content, I'm going to shoot a video, then I'm going to publish it onto YouTube. What I realized is that I could have the best content. I could have a lot of value in the video. It's a very rich conversation, but that doesn't matter if I haven't packaged it well. Because if it's got great content, it doesn't matter. If no one clicks on it, no one gets to experience the content. So what I realized is that I had to focus on the packaging as much as the content. So what I mean by packaging, it's the YouTube title, it's the YouTube thumbnail, it's the first minute of the video, the first 10 seconds, the first 30 seconds. If I can package all of that well, then what happens is people are going to look at the video, click it, and then watch the content. And that taught me a lot about business in the real world around us. You know, if you suddenly launch a product or service, it could be the best thing. It could add so much value to people that it could change your city or your country. But again, if no one knows about it, well, what's the point of putting all that effort into it? And so I started to understand the power of what I call the packaging. If I could package it well and have good content, then that would help grow the channel. And again, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but that became my sole focus. And I think this is the same thing with content. You know, before you shoot the content, think about the story you want to tell. Again, the packaging of it. Think about the structure, the narrative, the wrapping paper, if you will, and then go shoot the content. Because that part has to be step one. What is the packaging, and then what's going to go into the packaging? And so once I started to learn that, I'm still learning, I'm still on the journey. It taught me so much about business as well.
Okay, well, nice. And, you know, Simon, as we're coming to the end of the podcast, I have one last question for you, okay? So if the world stopped to listen to you for 30 seconds, what message would you want to leave ringing in their hearts?
I think a thought and a question. So the first thought is reflect on whether you are climbing the right mountain, because it is far better to be climbing slowly up the right mountain than fast up the wrong mountain. If you climb fast up the wrong mountain, you get to the top and you will hate the view. You will feel empty inside and you will feel like you've wasted your life. If you climb slowly up the right mountain, you will enjoy the journey. You will enjoy the journey, you will show up, you will be consistent. And after all, mastery is the echo of consistency. The next is a question. And the question taps into appreciation. A lot of us forget that we are a miracle. The fact that you were born is a miracle event in itself. There's a saying that goes around that says you are a 1 in over 400 trillion chance, which means you have effectively won the greatest lottery ticket there is going. And that is the lottery of life. And so the question I would want listeners to reflect on is, what are you going to do with that winning ticket of yours? What are you going to do with that winning ticket?
Right. Well, when you said that 1 is to 4 trillion, it reminds me, 400 trillion. Yeah, it reminds me of Gary Vee, who mentioned that as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to reflect on that, because we overlook the fact that we're a miracle. You know, the fact that you're born, it's a miracle event, but yet we don't live like that. And so we enter this tragic scenario of living as if we're never going to die, and then we end up dying having never really lived. And so to grasp this moment, today, right now, you have a choice. Do you continue in the way things have always been, or do you step out of the shadows and become the main character of your story? Do you say yes to a future that is better than what has come before and that requires you to become someone better, because tomorrow is determined by what you choose to do today?
Totally. Wow. Wow, what a powerful reminder, that sometimes the moments we fear the most, burnout, breakdown, rock bottom, can become the greatest invitations to begin again. And this time with purpose. And Simon didn't just share strategies today, he also shared soul. And from redefining success to managing energy over time to showing up fully as a father, creator, and change maker, this episode was a masterclass in living with intention. So guys, if something Simon said resonated deeply with you, don't just let it sit. Take a moment today to ask yourself, what truly energizes me and how can I do more of it? And make sure to grab his best-selling book, Energize, subscribe to his YouTube channel, and connect with him online. You'll thank yourself later, right? And where can my audience find you, by the way?
Sure. So I'm on all the major social media platforms, as you kindly mentioned just now, Rayson, the YouTube channel. So you can just search Simon Alexander Ong. I'm on Instagram. My handle is @SimonAlexanderO. LinkedIn. And of course, if you enjoy what you've heard today, I also have a weekly newsletter on my website, simonalexanderong.com.
Okay. Oh, nice. Well, I'm subscribed to it as well.
Perfect.
So I love it. I love it. And thank you so much for, hopping on the podcast with me and sharing so much of golden nuggets and truth with us. And guys, as always, if this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend, leave a review, and tag us on social to keep the ripple effect ongoing. So until next time, stay energized, stay aligned, and keep turning your purpose into impact. So this is Rayson signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.